On January 26th, so much value on the free agent market. Mark Feinsand in studio to make sense of it for us. Good morning to you. Last week, I think Matt said it. You could make a team that could win many divisions out of the free agents left on the board. The most valuable infielders left are who? Let's start there, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning, Lauren. Matt Chapman, I think, has to lead
Sure.
the way in terms of the valuable infielders. He's been one of the probably top 10 free agents on the market from the beginning of the offseason. Really no traction on that market. Everybody seems to be looking, Blue Jays, Cubs, are those teams still in play for him? He will obviously sign a deal at some point here, but he's looking for his price. But I think with the glove he offers at third base and the offensive potential, obviously a little bit down last year, but we know what he's done in the past. I think Matt Chapman is definitely the cream of the crop in terms of that infield.
You said no traction. I've heard Cubs and I've heard Yankees. Are they involved as well? For some reason, I thought he would, just because of the fast start last year, that he'd be off the board sooner rather than later. Not the case.
Yeah, I feel like if the Yankees are going to make a big move, it's probably for a pitcher still.
Okay.
They made their big move with Soto. They got Verdugo, Grisham. They've added to the offense this year already. I think adding a pitcher would be where I would look for them to go if there is still a big move to be made.
Who fills out the rest of your infield?
We have Brandon Belt at first base. We've got Whit Merrifield at second base and Tim Anderson at shortstop, coming off of a really down year. But I think there's a lot of bounce back potential there. He's probably looking at a one-year deal to try to rebound and reestablish some value. We know how good he's been when he's healthy. And behind the plate, I've got Gary Sanchez, another guy who really had a nice bounce back year. He could be waiting for the guy who's behind that question mark on the pitcher's mound to sign, because he had a really, really good run there with Blake Snell.
A very good run. We'll talk about Blake Snell in just a bit. Outfielders and DH. I mean, Cody Bellinger has to be at the top. And when Jock went to Arizona, for some reason, I thought that was just a foregone conclusion. That was going to be JD Martinez's job. Was that surprising to you?
Not totally surprising. I think, they were looking for a lefty bat. JD Martinez, I think, is the guy who I have as more value. I like JD Martinez in that DH spot. Great year last year. He's still 36. And I think when you look at, people think about JD Martinez, how long he's been around, and think he might be closer to 38, 39, 36 years old. A huge year last year with the Dodgers. This guy can still flat out hit. And I think, for a team looking for a DH, there's nobody out there better right now than JD Martinez. When you look at the outfield, obviously Cody Bellinger has been, top 3, top 5 free agent all around this offseason. He's still on the board, a bit surprising. Again, I think it comes down to the price that he's looking for and whether or not there are teams willing to pay that price. A lot of other teams have addressed those needs. The Yankees were a team we thought was going to be on Bellinger. They got Juan Soto. When the Blue Jays re-signed Kiermaier, I think that may have taken them out of there. The Cubs, the reunion with Chicago seems to be the one that makes the most sense. But Chicago's not going to bid against itself, and if there's not another team that they believe is really in this, this could take a little while still.
Where's Justin Turner, Mark? I mean, could there be, you check him in at reunions with the Mets? Wouldn't that be something? Because before he was a Dodger postseason legend, he was non-tendered and DFA'd, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's definitely in play. The Mets are still looking for a DH. Turner can play a couple of positions as well, but at this point, I think DH is probably where he's best suited. It would be nice to see him go back to New York, where it all started for him, and didn't start well, and have him come back after the success that he has had in his career and go back and sort of finish the job with the Mets.
Tomorrow night, you and I are going to party at the BBWA Awards, and Blake Snell will be getting his second Cy Young Award. We don't know where he's pitching. Do you have any answers right now?
No, and I don't think he does either right now. I mean, we know the teams that have been interested. We know the Angels, the Giants, the Yankees. There have been teams who have interest in him. It's just a matter, again, of finding the one that's willing to pay the price that he's looking for, or at least something close to it. Coming off a Cy Young season, you'd think there'd be a lot of interest, and there is. But interest and getting a deal done, sometimes there's a big gap between those two things. So we know Blake Snell's going to be leading a staff or towards the top of a staff somewhere this year. Where that is remains to be seen. I think the Angels and Giants are two teams to definitely watch.
You think, the theme for this offseason for me has been sequential, right? We've heard this guy can't sign until Ohtani signs, right? The market's waiting. Are Snell and Montgomery of that ilk or no?
Absolutely, and they're represented by the same agent, which probably doesn't help either in terms of one versus the other. Scott Boras trying to get both of them signed to deals. But yeah, I think the fact they're both lefties, Snell coming off the Cy Young season, Montgomery coming off of a World Series season, they're both highly anticipated guys. A lot of teams want both those guys at the price, and that's always what it comes down to in free agency. But you're right, this has been one big game of dominoes. Oh, when Ohtani signs, everything will start to go. All right, now when Yamamoto signs, everything will start to go. We did finally see it. When Josh Hader signed, all of a sudden we saw relievers come off the board. We talked about David Robertson earlier. Aroldis Chapman signed a deal. I think Hector Neris could be next.
Even so right after him, right? Yeah.
You know, I think we did finally see the relief market start to unclog a little bit once that dam broke with Josh Hader. But now, you know, I think Snell and Montgomery are the two guys who I think once Snell signs, you'll probably see Montgomery go fairly soon.